Thank you for welcoming me onto your screens or onto your headphones, depending on how you're watching this. I'm Eddie, and this is The Rollback. Folks, I'm going to talk to you today about The Last of Us, aka the best single video game adaptation ever created. Fight me. So, the synopsis. After a global pandemic destroys civilization, a hardened survivor in the name of Joel must take charge of a young 14-year-old girl who may be the last hope of humanity, Ellie. They must travel across the United States to get her to a lab where they can hopefully, possibly find a cure. But it gets very complicated very fast. So, The Last of Us is a game by Naughty Dog, a company that I find near and dear to my heart. They made what might be my favorite video game of my childhood, Jak and Daxter. Hashtag Jak4, please make it happen. That said, The Last of Us was a monumental game when it first came out. It was huge. Rave reviews from critics. I remember I was in a room with some friends when they were playing it. I didn't have a PlayStation 3. I had an Xbox. But I was in the room when friends were playing it, and I remember we all got so immersed in this story from the very beginning onward. So, obviously, fan expectation was very high. How would this show do? Would it live up to expectations, or would it fail? And I'm happy to say it succeeded in every capacity, and if anything, excelled where the video game found fault. So, this show is not an exact one-to-one recreation of the video game. That wouldn't really work. Instead, it takes the best elements of the game, makes them work, but it changes certain things and elevates what it has to change. There were no downgrades, none as far as I could see. In particular, I think episode 3 with the couple. In the game, you only see Frank for a minute, or a few minutes. He's not that big of a character in the game. He's more in passing. The mention of his husband is, again, in passing. Most players didn't even know that he was gay until it was made a bigger deal, I guess you could say, in like forums or on social media. Whereas here, it was on full display. The episode, I think, was like an hour, 10, hour 15. A beautiful, heartwarming episode that made you care and love these characters. Do they divert a bit from the game when Frank never sees... Is it Frank? I hope it's Frank. When Frank doesn't see Joel again? Yeah, they do divert, but it's not a bad thing. That letter says everything that we need to know when Ellie reads it. God help any son of a bitch that gets in our way. Indeed. Now, I've been harking on the story, but let's talk about the setting. It is beautiful. You could clearly tell no expenses were spared when it came to the setting. There are moments of like bad green screening, but for the most part, I think they tried practical effects. I'm not saying that they actually firebombed the city, but damn, I don't know where they were, but it looked pretty damn good. That said, I do want to talk about our two main characters, our two main protagonists, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. I'm sorry. I was going to say Ramsey Bella, but otherwise. Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal. These two characters, these two actors are incredible. And they play these characters so amazingly well. Joel, this hardened man who lost his daughter, closed up from the outside world, who begins to open up to this girl who frankly reminds him a lot of his daughter. Her attitude, her willingness to press on, the humor, the dark humor. And Ellie, this spark of joy who slowly gets zapped of all her hopefulness in the world after experiencing an incredibly traumatic event, which had us all just on the edge of our seat the same way the game did, but Ellie was able to overcome. That's one story beat I do want to mention that I'm glad that they stuck to. So in the game, Joel gets there right after Ellie is done killing the preacher. In most conventional media, Joel saves Ellie, but no. In this, Ellie saves herself. She has to. Arguably, she saves Joel too, but she saves herself, and that might be the most important thing here, because if Joel saves her, it robs her of her urgency, she is her own person. But for Ellie to save herself, it establishes her as a character who can get shit done. Also, this is kind of off topic, but I just want to say this real quick. To anyone that's bashing the show because of its representation of the LGBTQ community, two things. One, the game had gay characters. 2, they weren't token, they serviced the story. So, and I guess 3, go fuck yourself if you think that that's a bad thing, that they had these characters involved. Just want to get that out there. That said, though, again, the representation involved in this show is incredible. The acting is incredible. The action sequences are incredible. It succeeds everywhere where the game wouldn't have been able to transition into TV shows. There's not a lot of crazy platforming. There are little micro bits here and there. The action isn't overdone. Also, certain characters are elevated. For example, in the game, I believe they're supposed to be in Pittsburgh when shit goes down, but instead they're in Kansas City. But they even give the Kansas City mafia, but like the uprising, they even give them solid reasoning for why they become the way that they are, because citizens were beaten, tortured, and raped. So they did the same to the officers, which, I mean, moral ambiguity aside, can you really blame a guy for ratting out his neighbors in exchange for medication or surgery for his son or his little brother? I mean, I can't really fault him. And Joel at one point even says, "I don't know your situation. I'm sorry I judged you." That said, though, as far as cons are concerned, I think the only, and this is nitpicking, is the fact that they don't have a lot of specialty clickers. In the game, there's different kinds of clickers that do different things. In the show, there's really one kind, and there's like one Titan clicker, and that's it, which, fair enough, I fully understand. That's a nitpick, though. Like, if I had to pick something that bothered me, I guess it would be that. But anyway, the expansion of the story overall, solid. The character portrayals are solid. The setting, solid. I don't have any legitimate gripes. Except maybe I'm really worried about Season 2. But if you know the game, you know why I'm worried. If you don't know the game, go play it. You can get spoiled. Or you can just wait for however long it's going to be until we get Season 2. That said, what did y'all think of The Last of Us? Go ahead and leave a comment down below. We'd greatly appreciate it. As I always say, we're trying to grow the channel. Please like and subscribe. Oh, listen to the podcast. There should be a link down below. It's pretty good, especially when I'm there. That said, we'll see everybody.